Matthew Henry's Commentary on the Whole Bible. 1 Chronicles 18. David's piety in his prayer we had an account of in the foregoing chapter. Here follows immediately that which one might reasonably expect, an account of his prosperity. For those that seek first the kingdom of God and the righteousness thereof, as David did, shall have other things added to them as far as God sees good for them. Here is 1. His prosperity abroad. He conquered the Philistines, verse 1, the Moabites, verse 2, the king of Zobah, verses 3 and 4, the Syrians, verses 5 to 8, made the king of Hamath his tributary, verses 9 to 11, and the Edomites, verses 12 and 13. 2. His prosperity at home. His court and kingdom flourished, verses 14 to 17. All this we had an account of before, 2 Samuel 8. David's victories, 1042 BC. 1 Now after this it came to pass, that David smote the Philistines, and subdued them, and took Gath and her towns out of the hand of the Philistines. 2 And he smote Moab, and the Moabites became David's servants, and brought gifts. 3 And David smote Hadarezer king of Zobah unto Hamath, as he went to establish his dominion by the river Euphrates. 4 And David took from him 1,000 chariots, and 7,000 horsemen, and 20,000 footmen. David also houghed all the chariot horses, but reserved of them 100 chariots. 5 And when the Syrians of Damascus came to help Hadarezer king of Zobah, David slew of the Syrians 22,000 men. 6 Then David put garrisons in Syria Damascus, and the Syrians became David's servants, and brought gifts. Thus the Lord preserved David whithersoever he went. 7 And David took the shields of gold that were on the servants of Hadarezer, and brought them to Jerusalem. 8 Likewise from Tibhath and from Chun, cities of Hadarezer, brought David very much brass, wherewith Solomon made the brasen sea, and the pillars, and the vessels of brass. After this, it is said, verse 1, David did those great exploits. After the sweet communion he had had with God by the word and prayer, as mentioned in the foregoing chapter, he went on his work with extraordinary vigor and courage, conquering and to conquer. Thus Jacob, after his vision, lifted up his feet, Genesis 29 verse 1. We have taken a view of these victories before, and shall now only observe 1. Those that have been long enemies to the Israel of God will be brought down at last. The Philistines had, for several generations, been vexatious to Israel, but now David subdued them, v. 1. Thus shall all opposing rule, principality, and power be, at the end of time, put down by the Son of David, and the most inveterate enemies shall fall before him. 2. Such is the uncertainty of this world that frequently men lose their wealth and power when they think to confirm it. Hadarezer was smitten as he went to establish his dominion, verse 3. 3. A horse is a vain thing for safety, so David said, Psalm 33 verse 17, and it seems he believed what he said, for he houghed the chariot horses, verse 4. Being resolved not to trust to them, Psalm 20 verse 7, he would not use them. 4. The enemies of God's church are often made to ruin themselves by helping one another, verse 5. The Syrians of Damascus were smitten when they came to help Hadarezer. When hand thus joins in hand they shall not only not go unpunished, but thereby they shall be gathered as the sheaves into the floor, Micah 4 verses 11 and 12. 5. The wealth of the sinner sometimes proves to have been laid up for the just. The Syrians brought gifts, verse 6. Their shields of gold and their brass were brought to Jerusalem, verses 7 and 8. As the tabernacle was built of the spoils of the Egyptians, so the temple of the spoils of other Gentile nations, a happy presage of the interest the Gentiles should have in the gospel church. 9 Now when king of Hamath heard how David had smitten all the host of Hadarezer king of Zobah, 10 He sent Hadaram his son to King David, to inquire of his welfare, and to congratulate him, because he had fought against Hadarezer, and smitten him, for Hadarezer had war with 2 winky face, and with him all manner of vessels of gold and silver and brass. 11 Them also King David dedicated unto the Lord, with the silver and the gold that he brought from all these nations, from Edom, and from Moab, and from the children of Ammon, and from the Philistines, and from Amalek. 12 Moreover Abishai the son of Zeruiah slew of the Edomites in the valley of Salt 18,000. 13 And he put garrisons in Edom, and all the Edomites Edomites became David's servants. Thus the Lord preserved David whithersoever he went. 14 So David reigned over all Israel, and executed judgment and justice among all his people. 15 And Joab the son of Zeruiah was over the host, and Jehoshaphat the son of Ahilud, recorder. 16 And Zadok the son of Ahitub, and Abimelech the son of Abiathar, were the priests, and Shavsha was scribe. 17 And Benaiah the son of Jehoiada was over the Cherethites and the Pelethites, and the sons of David were chief about the king. Here let us learn, 1. That it is our interest to make those our friends who have the presence of God with them. The king of Hamath, hearing of David's great success, sent to congratulate him, and to court his favor with a noble present, verses 9 and 10. It is in vain to contend with the son of David. Kiss the Son, therefore, lest he be angry. Let the kings and judges of the earth, and all inferior people too, be thus wise, thus instructed. The presents we are to bring him are not vessels of gold and silver, as here, those shall be welcome to him who have no such presents to bring, but our hearts and sincere affections, our whole selves, we must present to him as living sacrifices. 2. That what God blesses us with we must honor him with. The presence of his friends, as well as the spoils of his enemies, David dedicated unto the Lord, verse 11, that is, he laid them up towards the building and enriching of the temple. That is most truly and most comfortably our own which we have consecrated unto the Lord, and which we use for his glory. Let our merchandise and our hire be holiness to the Lord, Isaiah 23 verse 18. 3. That those who take God along with them whithersoever they go may expect to prosper, and be preserved, whithersoever they go. It was said before, verse 6, and here it is repeated, verse 13, that the Lord preserved David whithersoever he went. Those are always under the eye of God that have God always in their eye. 4. God gives men power, not that they may look great with it, but that they may do good with it. When David reigned over all Israel, he executed judgment and justice among all his people, and so answered the end of his elevation. He was not so intent on his conquests abroad as to neglect the administration of justice at home. Herein he served the purposes of the kingdom of providence, and of that God who sits in the throne judging right, and he was an eminent type of the Messiah, the scepter of whose kingdom is a right scepter.